Hi guys, this is Paige from Paperbacks and Lattes, and today I will be discussing the books that I read in May. So I had a pretty good reading month in May. I had 20 books total. I DNF'd one book. I had 17 5 stars and 2 4 stars. So I read a lot of great books. If anything is below a 3, I'll just DNF it. And I usually try to pick up books that I know that I'm going to like. So my books are usually rated pretty high because I read books that I like. So let's begin discussing the books that I read in May. The first book I read was On the Rocks by Candy Steiner. This is the first book in the Becker Brothers series. This follows Noah, who works at a whiskey distillery. He is the second oldest brother in the family. His grandfather helped establish this whiskey distillery. His dad played a huge role in the whiskey distillery until he died at the whiskey distillery. But they think that his death was not just by accident, like somebody may have done it. So they're trying to prove it, but they don't have the proof. But three of the brothers work at the distillery to keep the family tradition alive in the distillery. And he is a barrel raiser. He makes the barrels that the whiskey is in. And he meets Ruby Grace, and she is the mayor's daughter, and she is engaged to a want-to-be politician. He's going to be running for senator, I believe, and she has just been bred for that type of life, to be a politician's wife, and she is going along with it until she meets Noah, and she realizes that maybe her life isn't all what she wants it to be, that maybe she has goals and aspirations that she wants, and she has to make a choice whether to go along with what her parents want or Noah, who she is falling for. It was a great book, and I rated it 5 stars. Then next we have Angies Gladiator by Ruby Dixon. This is the Ice Home series, number 5. This follows Angie, who is a human who has been kidnapped from Earth by these aliens, and now she is on this ice planet with these other type of aliens, and she is mysteriously pregnant. She doesn't know how she got pregnant. She doesn't remember anything, and so she is pregnant with an unknown child. She doesn't know if it's human or alien or what it is. And she is being protected by the clone brothers. They're clones of themselves, but they're brothers. And Vortis, one of the brothers, is really taken with her. He is thinking differently from his brother, which they're supposed to, since they're clones, they have the same thoughts. But now he is thinking differently. He views Angie as being very protective of her, and he's starting to have feelings for her where he's never had feelings before. He's just always followed like a master's orders. So this is all new territory for him. It was a really sweet story between them and how they came to be, and then when Angie had her baby, it was so sweet, and I rated this one 5 stars. Then I read Devil's Day Party by C.M. Stunage. This is her brand new standalone novel that just released in May. This is a reverse harem story. This is about Karma. She is growing up in this town, and she is going to a private school where all these rich kids go. She just happened to be able to go to this school because her mom's sold some stock or something to be able to afford to send her to this really rich, prestigious school. And she has been bullied by these guys there, and then something happens on this particular day. It is Devil's Day, and she goes through all these events during the day, and then the day ends horribly. When she wakes up, she's on the same day again. It is just like Groundhog Day in the Groundhog Day movie, where the day just repeats itself. And so she has to learn how to live her day, and she's always trying to figure out how to break the cycle so she doesn't have to live the same day the rest of her life. And she goes through a lot of obstacles and just understanding things and being a better person to try and help the people that she's around. And this is a reverse harem, so there's 3 other guys that she is with. She has to learn like how they tick. There's hidden things that they're all hiding. When they lash out at her is because they are also have painful backstories, and she just has to get through to the bottom of it. I rated it 4 stars because of part of the ending was a little bit traumatic. It has a little bit of a trigger warning, and the trigger warning is suicide, so that is why I brought it down a star. I hate to say that to kind of spoil the plot, but I do want to put that trigger warning. It is in there, so just be mindful when you're reading it. Then I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is a second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first book, in April for my readathon, and so I had to continue on with the series because it is an excellent series. And I read the second one. This follows Feyre. The first book, she had killed a fae who was disguised as a wolf, and so she had to sacrifice her life. Since she had taken a life of a fae, she had to sacrifice her life for the fae, and so she was living in the Spring Court. A lot happened in the first book that went down. She basically had to save and break a curse and save all of these fae people from an evil fae. So all that happens in the first book, and in the second book she had to make a deal with the high fae of the Night Court, and his name was Rhysand, and she had to make a deal with him in the first book that she would spend 1 week per month with him because he had to save her life. And he did this for other reasons, and I can't really get into the details of this book because I don't want to spoil the first or the second book, but this book was magnificent. It totally took a different turn than I thought it was going to, and I totally love how it turned out. I thought I loved the first one, but the second one, was so good. I loved where the story took the turn and where Feyre went into the story, and it's just I can't really give details, but just know that it was a definite 5-star read for me. Then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the third book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. This also follows Feyre, and there is this huge war because there is a king that is trying to kill all of the humans so the fae can just like take over the human land. Feyre and all of her friends are trying to save the humans, save the fae, and they are going to war, and it is a huge war, huge obstacles in their way. They have to fight, they have to overcome so much, and it is just a really great book. The second one is probably my favorite, but the third one comes really close. I also rated it 5 stars. I love the series and I highly recommend it. Then I read Mute by M.L. Nystrom. This is the first book in the Dragon Runner series. This is a motorcycle club series. It follows Katrina. She has just lost her job. She's been working at the library, but they had to let her go. So one of the grandmothers who brings her kids in to the library when they do those readings for the children, she told her, hey, come work at my bar. So she comes to work at the bar as like a bartender slash server, and it is actually the motorcycle club's bar. So there she meets all the motorcycle club members. She's never been in this type of world before. It's all new to her, and she meets a guy. He's like the bouncer, the bodyguard type of this club. His name is Mute because vocal cords were damaged, so he can't speak, and so they call him Mute. and he is just really grumpy, a gruff guy. Of course, he doesn't communicate with people very much because of his limitations, and so she just kind of writes him off. She's kind of scared of him because he's just a huge guy and he's not that friendly, but he starts to protect her, and he starts to have feelings for her, and she starts to have feelings for him, and these things happen. Of course, motorcycle club books always have a lot of drama from either other motorcycle club rivals or other outside dangers where they have to protect each other, and it's just really great. I love all of the action that happens in motorcycle club books, and this one definitely has the action that I love. And I really liked a damaged hero, and especially where he can't speak and they have to rely on other ways of communication. I love that because it's different, and yeah, I gave this one 5 stars as well. Then I read Road to Winter by Lily Archer. This is the Faye's Captive series. This is book number 2. I read book 1 during my readathon in April, and I had to continue on with the series to see what happens. This also takes place in the land of the Fae, and Leander is the king of the Winter Court, and he has rescued Taylor. She is a girl that has been kidnapped from college. She was just going to college trying to get her degree, and she's kidnapped and taken to this land of the Fae, and he is mated to her, and so he has to rescue her from the Summer Court because that is who stole her, and he takes her back to the Winter Court, and there is a lot of obstacles on their way. Each book is very short, so they always leave off on a cliffhanger for the next book, and that is where the next book comes in that I read, Bite of Winter, and this is the 3rd book in the series. This just continues on with their story of how they got to the Winter Court and their lives there, and then she is kidnapped again and he is trying to search for her and rescue her, and she is actually kidnapped by, he used to be the king before Leander took over the throne, and he is back, and he has a whole army of slaves that he is forcing them to fight for him, and he is trying to take over the Winter Court again, and she is kidnapped by him, and then she realizes something very big, and then this is where the 3rd book comes in that I read, Beyond the Mountain, and it is number 4 in the series, and this is where Leander has to come rescue her from this evil king, and there is a lot of secrets that are revealed. I don't want to say because I don't want to spoil the plot of the book, but he has to come rescue her, but things are a little bit different because something big is revealed, and this is just a really great series. It doesn't end there. It actually goes on to another couple, but that is the first 4 books are for Leander and Taylor, and I highly recommend them. They are very, very good, and I rated them all 5 stars. Then I read Hannah's Hero. This is by Ruby Dixon. This is number 6 in the Ice Home series, and this follows another human girl who has been kidnapped from Earth by aliens, and now she is on this ice planet, and she is, after they receive the Kui that helps them live on this planet, it resonates them to their mate. So she has been resonated to her mate, Giselle, but she is not wanting to accept her fate. They say that you cannot go home. They have no way off of this ice planet. There's no way to go back to Earth, but she refuses to accept that because she is actually a writer and an author at home, and she had just published her book and it made it big time, and they were going to make a movie out of it, and so she was very successful on Earth, and she did not want to accept her fate of being isolated on this ice planet with these aliens. She is just fighting it. She doesn't want to accept that she has a mate because she doesn't want a family. She doesn't want babies. She just wants to go back to Earth. She goes on this trip to a fruit cave they have on the island, and Giselle goes with her, and they both talk it out. They communicate, and he helps share her feelings because he has lost his home. He used to live on an island. Now he is on the ice planet as well, so they do have a lot in common, and then there are some dangers that threaten them, threaten their lives, threaten his life, and she realizes what is most important. And this is a really good book, and I rated it 5 stars. Then I read Debbie's Distraction. This is also by Ruby Dixon. This is in the Ice Home Planet. This is number 7, and this is about Debbie and Nadek. Nadek has lost his leg previously on the island that they lived on. It was a hunting accident, and he lost one leg. So now he is just really depressed. He doesn't feel like he is a man, a full man. He doesn't feel like he has to have people help him get around and carry him around, and he just doesn't feel like he is worth anything anymore, and he just has pretty much no will to live. And Debbie is a scientist that was on Earth, and now she is on this ice planet. She's a human girl, and she's very smart, and he gets an idea to maybe get a fake leg, a prosthetic. So he asked Debbie for help, but he tells her not to tell anybody because he doesn't know if this is going to work. So Debbie is very smart, and so she helps him devise a prosthetic leg for him. And of course, during their time together, they realize that they are developing feelings for each other, and they choose themselves to be mates before resonance even ever kicks in. So very good. I love this story. I love how Debbie was a scientist, and she was so smart, and she helped Nadek, and it just was a really good feel-good story, and I rated it 5 stars. Then I read Heart Recaptured by Tilly Cole. This is the second book in the Hades Hangman series. I read the first one last year, It Ain't Me Babe, and I loved the book. I loved it so much, and so I wanted to continue on with the series. This is also another motorcycle club series, and it's sort of a dark themed series. So just know going in that there is a lot of mention of like rape and death and just all kinds of things. It's kind of dark. This book follows Kai. He is the vice president of the motorcycle club. He is like the second in command, and he is just drawn to this girl that they rescued from this cult, and her name is Lila, and he is just drawn to her, but she is still ingrained in this cult because she has just been taught all her life what is wrong and what's right. But even though it's totally messed up, she has been through so much trauma. They rape girls, it's a horrible place, and they're rescued from this, but she doesn't realize she's been rescued. She really thinks that she has been kidnapped from this cult, and so over the course of the book they're having to try to teach her like, hey, what you were in the cult was very messed up and very wrong. So she has to slowly come to terms with what is actually right, and what was done to her was very, very wrong. And of course, Kai is the one to show her these things. She trusts him, and of course feelings begin to rise, and yeah, it's a really good story, and I rated it 5 stars. Okay, so my camera battery died, so I went and charged it for a while, and now I'm back. I'm gonna try to finish up this wrap up so before my battery dies again. So the next book I read is Souls Unfractured. It is the 3rd book in the Hades Hangman series by Tilly Cole. This follows one of the motorcycle club members. His name is Flame. Of course, they all go by different kind of names, not really their real names. And Maddie, who is one of the girls they rescued from the cult. And Flame and Maddie have very, very difficult past. They have both been through so much trauma. They've both been raped. They have been just treated horribly. Flame has a different kind of way of thinking. He is probably on the autism spectrum, but he's never diagnosed because of how he was raised. His father treated him horribly, and the motorcycle club kind of took him under their wing, and he goes through so much, and Maddie is drawn to him because he's very protective of her, and she helps calm his fears and just really helps him when nobody else can. So this was a really great story. I love the first book in the series, but this 3rd one comes really close. I loved Flame and Maddie's story, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read My Torn by Kay Webster. This is probably my favorite book of the month. I just really love the story. In some places you can say this is not really believable, but it is fiction. But the other parts of the story I absolutely loved. This is about Casey, who is abandoned as a newborn. She is left at a Christmas manger scene, like a nativity scene, and the church finds her. The foster system takes her over, and so she is just brought up from foster home to foster home, and she's had a kind of difficult life, and she's always wanted a family. And then one day because she suffers from ADHD, and one day when she's walking out of therapy, she sees this penny on the ground, and she goes to pick it up, but a guy snatches it, and they look at each other, and she just like walks to her car, and the guy is trying to give it to her, but you know, they're driving away. Shortly after that, a guy comes to her foster home where she's living and pays off her foster father to keep her. Essentially, he gave him money so he could take her to his house, and he takes her out to eat because she is always cold, she's always hungry, she is not treated right at her foster home. And he buys her a ton of clothes, he buys her all this food, and he brings her home, and she is just really wary of this guy. She doesn't know why he's treating her so nicely. She thinks that she's gonna have to give him payment in exchange for all of these things that he's given her, but he assures her that that's not the reason why he's doing it. He has a brother, Torin, who is on the autism spectrum, and he does not verbally speak very well. He can speak. It's very hard for him to verbally speak his thoughts, but he's super smart. He helps his brother run their business, and he communicates perfectly through email and text, but he does have a hard time verbally getting it out. He was the guy that snatched up the penny from her, and he does not connect to anybody, but he connected to her, and that is the reason why his brother wanted to bring her to live with them, because he saw his brother connect to this girl, and he wanted this girl to be with them so Torin wouldn't be alone. And things happen in the book, a lot more happens, but it's an excellent book, and I loved it, and I rated it 5 stars. Then I read Grin and Beard It. This is the #2 book in the Winston Brothers series. I love the Winston family, all of the siblings. There's like 6 brothers and 1 sister, I believe. They all have very unique personalities. I love the family. I love when I read a book in the series because I just love their world. They live in a small town. This centers around the oldest son, Jethro. He is a park ranger, and he helps this woman who is stranded on the side of the road, and her name is Sienna, and she is actually a famous actress, comedian, writer, director, but he doesn't know her. She doesn't tell him who she is because she likes not being recognized for who she is. She just likes to be liked for just being, you know, who she is, not just famous. So he doesn't know who she is, and until they're swamped, but he really likes her and she likes him, and they're trying to figure out a way to be together, or because she is so famous, and he is just a small town park ranger, and he's had a rough past. He's had to overcome a lot, and it was a really great story, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Aliens Mail Order Bride by Ruby Dixon. This is the first book in the Mail Order Bride series. This is about Ivor. He lives on this planet. He runs his small farm, and he is looking for a mail order bride, just someone to be with him, to help around the farm, and just to be a companion for him. He orders an alien like him, but when she arrives, surprisingly, she is not an alien. She is a human girl. Her name is Nicole, and she has tricked him because she is trying to find a safe place to live, and He does not want her at all because she can't help him. Like, she's not as strong as an alien. She's just not built like them. But while she's there at his house, she cooks for him, and she's just an excellent companion, and he starts to develop feelings for her. I rated this book 4 stars. Then I read Beard Science by Penny Reed. This is the 3rd book in the Winston Brothers series. I was so looking forward to this book because this follows the brother Cletus. I think he's the 3rd or 4th in the lineup. I can't really remember. But Cletus is so adorable because he's super smart and he's very mischievous. He plays pranks on a lot of people. If somebody wrongs him, he will get them back, like, but not, he doesn't fight them. He just thinks of clever ways to get back at them. Just like there's an instance in the book where he had somebody put an itching powder in the sheriff's son clothes when they're dry cleaned, so that way he's always scratching the back of his neck. Just things like that. Like he gets people back for wronging him. He is blackmailed by Jennifer. Jennifer works at the local bakery. She is under the thumb of her parents. Her mother runs her life. She shops for the clothes she wears. She tells her how to act. She tells her how to dress. She tells her what she can and cannot do to the tiniest little thing. And this is all she has ever known. And she runs this bakery. She does all the work. Her mother does nothing. Her father, he is a local high school teacher. And she is known as the banana cake queen around her town. And because her mother dresses her up in these silly dresses, in these outfits, and she can't stand who she is, and she is really looking for any kind of way to escape, and how she can escape from her life is to get married. So she blackmails Cletus into trying to get a husband for her. Cletus has just seen her as this silly girl, as well as like pretty much all the town has, but he helps her discover who she truly is, because it's not just a man she needs to find who she truly is. And so she needs to be the one to give herself a better life and not depend on anybody else. And I love this book. They both fell for each other, and it was just the cutest love story, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Full Tilt by Emma Scott. This is the first book in the Full Tilt series. There's the 2 books, Full Tilt and All In. And Full Tilt is about Jonah and Casey. Jonah has a heart condition. He has heart disease from a virus he had contracted in a different country, and it ruined his heart, and he had a heart transplant, but he is still gravely sick, and he's on borrowed time. And he meets this girl, Casey. She is the guitarist for a band who is starting to become famous. He's actually the limo driver for the band, and she is just totally wasted. And the bodyguard puts her into a limo and says, take her back to the house, because chaos has ensued at the place where their concert was being held at. So he tries to take her home, but there's nobody there, and he doesn't want to just leave her passed out on the doorstep. So he takes her back to his apartment so he can protect her. And then he starts to get to know her. She comes back to his apartment for a few days to kind of get away from all of the band and the craziness and the drinking, because it just drives her to drink. She doesn't have a good home life. Her parents abandoned her when she was 17. She has been homeless, and she has just had a hard time, and Jonah is an escape for her. And of course they fall in love, and it's an excellent story, but it is so sad. I did not know how sad this book was going to be. I cried so hard. And I suffer from depression, and especially I have triggers regarding death, so I just want to put that out there. I did not know this going into this book, that there was going to be death in the book. And yeah, it is all in the book, and it is super sad. I had a really hard day after I read this book. It really kind of put me into depression. So this book was, it was so good, but it was so sad too. So I still rated it 5 stars because it was beautifully written. The story is just magnificent, but it is so incredibly sad at the same time, and I cried my eyes out. And then the last book I read for the month of May is All In, the second book in the Full Tilt series. I had to finish the series because I could not leave off where the first book left off because I was so sad, and I said the second book has to give me some kind of hope, and it did. The second book was still sad because it did leave off where the first book left, and of course that was just so much sadness. And they're having to go, I can't give any details for the second book because that would just completely ruin the first book. But just know, from where the first book was so sad, the second book does make the story better. And I'm glad that I did read the second book right after the first book, because it kind of gives you some closure and some happiness that things did work out. There is still a lot of sadness, but there is a lot of happiness that does happen in the second book. So it's, when you read Full Tilt, you need to immediately read All In because it helps kind of give you some closure. So that is all the books that I read for May. I hope you guys had a great reading month. Let me know what you read as well, and if you have read any of the books I've read. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!